Hello, my name's Josie. I'm 35 years old. My life has been nothing short of a roller coaster, and I've not enjoyed the entire trip. I recently happened to run into my ex-husband and I got revenge on him. Let me start by telling you about my ex-husband, Mike. Mike and I met at college. It was pretty much love at first sight for us. We dated throughout college and we knew that we wanted to be with each other for a long time. So even though I had moved away from my home state to go to college and had planned to go back, I stayed in the same state as my college to remain with Mike. My parents were not really happy with that, but they respected my decision. They did tell me that they would not help me if I fell on hard times, and I accepted that condition. After we graduated, I moved in with Mike. Everything was going great except for one thing: Mike's mother, Laverne. Laverne hated me from the get-go. She made that very clear from the very first time I met her. She was rude and dismissive of me. She kept telling me that her son deserved better, and on many occasions tried to set Mike up with her friends' daughters. Mike never really said anything to his mother, and whenever I confronted him about it, he would tell me that's just how his mother was. She single-handedly raised him, so she was very overprotective of him. She had a tendency to be overcritical of everyone he brought home, and I was no exception to that. Of course, it hurt me a lot because Laverne was always overly mean to me. I couldn't even get out of a meeting with her because if I tried, Mike would get angry with me. He'd tell me that I was being too sensitive and that I was not allowed to disrespect his mother that way. Of course, he'd also tell Laverne about things that went on between us, so that only made her hate me more. Every fight we had, he'd go running to her to complain about me. After Mike and I made up and forgot about the fight, Laverne would bring it up again and use it to put me down further. Mike would side with his mom and essentially rehash the fight all over again. By this point, we had been dating for 5 years, and I was in a place that was completely foreign to me because Mike had been very controlling about who I got to hang out with. I hadn't made any friends in the area, and Mike had demanded that I come back home directly from work. I never realized at that time that I was being abused emotionally and verbally. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't bring myself to be out there in the world alone. So when Mike proposed to me, I reluctantly said yes. We had a big fancy wedding, but I was not happy about it at all. I wanted to cry, but I felt so alone because my family had no idea about what I was going through, and I felt like they would not help me out, even if they knew. Within a year of being married, I got pregnant. Mike was ecstatic about the pregnancy, but I wasn't. I dreaded bringing a child into our relationship, but I'd always wanted a child, so I let it be. The pregnancy was not easy on me at all. I had to quit my job and I had to rest a lot. The only times I went out of the house were to do a little grocery shopping or to walk around in the park. I spent a lot of time on my phone, scrolling through social media or just watching some shows. It was mind-numbing to constantly be at home. But I did whatever I could to make sure that my baby grew safe and healthy. About 6 months into my pregnancy, I began to notice that Mike was behaving differently. He became very quiet and withdrawn. I also noticed that he began spending even more time with his mother and would oftentimes stay the night at her place. He then also invited her to live with us until I gave birth without asking me. Surprisingly, Laverne was not as mean as she'd always been, but she never stopped throwing insults at me whenever she could. I tried to talk to him about it many times, but he'd always shoot me down. This continued for a month until I'd had enough. I cornered him one day while he was reading a book in the living room and told him we needed to talk. "Mike, sweetie, we need to talk." "What do you mean? There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. Something's been bothering you. Just tell me about it." I don't know if I want to talk about it right now. I'm still trying to figure out what to do because every time I think about it, I feel an ungodly amount of rage. Okay, maybe that's all the more reason for you to tell me about it. Fine then. I know you cheated on me, Josie. What? The baby isn't mine. I can feel it. There's no way that's my kid. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. How can you just say that? Oh, come on. Don't act all innocent. You've been acting weird. You stay out too long when you go shopping. You're always on your phone, and now you're pregnant. It's too convenient. You're being crazy. I've always been faithful to you. This baby is yours. Just because I spend a little extra time outside on my phone doesn't mean I'm cheating on you. Yeah, right. I've seen the way you talk to that guy at the grocery store, always smiling at him. I bet he's the father. Smiling? Mike, he's the cashier. I'm just being polite. If smiling and being kind were considered cheating, then everybody in the world would be unfaithful. Don't try to twist this around. I know what I see. And you know what? My mom thinks the same. You cannot seriously use your mother to justify your reasoning. You know she doesn't like me. What's all this about? What's going on? I was just telling Josie here that I know she's been cheating on me. The baby isn't mine, Mom. I can tell. Oh, I knew it. I always had a feeling about her. She never respected this family. Laverne, you can't be serious. I've always been loyal to Mike and this family. Loyal? Ha, that's a joke. Do you think I didn't notice how you flaunt yourself around town, always trying to get attention? I'm not flaunting myself, I'm just being myself. Just because I like to put a little effort into the way I look before I go out, it doesn't mean I'm flaunting myself. You both are being unfair and cruel. Josie, don't play the victim here. You're not as innocent as you pretend to be. Mike, this is insane. I haven't done anything wrong. We can get a paternity test done right now if you want. I have nothing to hide from you, nor have I had a reason to cheat on you. Reason to cheat? A woman like you doesn't need a reason to cheat. You're a disgrace. You can't just accuse me without proof. What did I ever do to make you think I would cheat? Like I said, you stay out too long. You're always on your phone. And you flirt with other men. That's all the proof I need. That's not proof. That's paranoia. I'm not cheating on you. You need to trust me. Trust you? How can anyone trust a woman like you? Mike deserves better. Laverne, I have never given you or Mike any reason not to trust me. This baby is Mike's, and I won't let you two bully me into thinking otherwise. I'm not going to raise someone else's kid, Josie. So you have two choices, abort it or leave my house. How can you say that? How can you be so heartless? Oh, stop with the drama. Mike gave you a choice. Either abort it or leave us alone. I can't believe you both. After everything you think so little of me? But fine, if that's how it is, I'll leave. But just know, Mike, you're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. Get out and take that baby with you. You'll regret this, I promise you that. Just leave already. Good riddance. I went up to our room with tears running down my face. I could not believe that Mike thought so low of me. I had never once even thought of cheating on him. Was I miserable in the relationship? Of course. But did that mean that I wanted to cheat on him? Absolutely not. If there's one thing I hate, it's cheaters. That was something I made very clear to Mike from the start of our relationship. I knew that these thoughts were not his alone. I was sure that Laverne had slowly been feeding him those thoughts so that he could get rid of me, and he listened to her. The Mike I knew would never have asked me to abort our child. I packed all my bags and made my way to my car. Mike did not try to stop me. Instead, he simply told me to leave my keys by the door. I didn't have much money except for the little amount I had in my savings. I managed to find a woman's shelter, which is where I stayed for a while until it was time for me to give birth. My mother flew in to be by my side, and after I'd given birth, she asked me where Mike was. I broke down crying and told her everything that happened. She was shocked about it and was really angry with Mike. Even as a baby, it was very clear that the child I birthed was Mike's. I named our child Jake, and my mom promised to help me out. We compared living expenses in both states and realized that the state I was in was a lot more affordable. My mom pulled some strings and managed to get me a decent job, which I started working 3 months after I gave birth. My mom stayed with me for a year to help take care of Jake, and my dad would fly in every few weeks to make sure I was doing okay too. I was really lucky to have such supportive parents, and a part of me hated myself for not reaching out to them earlier. I also got served with divorce papers from Mike, and I didn't even bother contesting it. I made sure that Mike hadn't played around with the conditions and then signed the papers. He never called once to even see Jake or to check if Jake was his. Of course, I made sure not to put Mike's name down on Jake's birth certificate because I didn't want him trying to claim custody of Jake at any point in time. I should have also had him sign a waiver of his parental rights, but I did not think of that at the time. Anyway, over the next 10 years, a lot happened. I managed to get back on my feet and even found myself a better job than the one my mom got me. Jake and I were like a pair of best friends. There was absolutely nothing more he wanted to do than be around me and do things with me. I loved that we were so close. When Jake was about 2 years old, I met my current husband, Denzel. Denzel was a client of mine with whom my company had a big project to work on. We ended up spending a lot of time with each other, and we quickly realized that we had feelings for each other. We waited until the project was done before we started dating. I made it very clear to Denzel from the start that I came with Jake and that I'd always choose Jake over him. Denzel was very understanding of that, and after dating for 6 months, I introduced him to Jake. The two of them got along really well. Jake fell in love with Denzel and began asking for him all the time. Denzel also loved Jake dearly, and every time he came over, he'd bring something for Jake, be it food, toys, or even clothes. He quickly took on a fatherly role, and it made my heart swell with even more love for him. Denzel and I only dated for 2 years, but we knew that we were it for each other. We had a small courthouse wedding, and we moved in together. Denzel was an amazing father to Jake, and when Jake turned 8, Denzel legally adopted Jake. Everything was going great, and I loved my new life. 2 years later, while at the mall with Denzel and Jake, I heard a familiar voice call out to me. I was alone with Jake, while Denzel had gone to the washroom. My stomach was heavy with dread as I turned around. "Josie? Is that really you?" "Mike, what are you doing here?" I didn't expect to see you. And who's this young man with you?" "This is Jake, my son." "Your son? But he looks just like me." "That's because he is yours, Mike. Do you remember accusing me of infidelity when I was pregnant and telling me to leave? Funny how things turn out, isn't it?" "Oh my God, what have I done? Josie, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about everything. I should have believed you when you said Jake was mine." "Do you seriously think an apology will fix everything that you put me through? You accused me of things I'd never do, and also tried to force me to do something I could have never done." "I know. I'm truly sorry. I was scared, confused. I let my mother get into my head." "You knew how much your mother hated me, yet you listened to her. You knew how hard she tried to ruin my reputation on several occasions, and you still let her fill your head with garbage. I know, and I've come to realize how toxic that was of me to do. But seeing Jake now, I can't deny he's my son. That doesn't change what you did, nor does it take back all the mean things you and your mom said to me while we were together. I know, I've regretted it every single day since then. Well, your regret doesn't change the past. Can I at least talk to him? Mommy, who's this man? Jake, I'm your father. No, you're not. My daddy is right over there. Is everything okay here? Not really. This is my ex-husband, Mike. You know, the one who accused me of cheating on him and kicked me out of his house when I was 7 months pregnant. Daddy, this man is saying that he's my father. That's because I am. Josie, who is this man? I'm Josie's husband and Jake's father. Josie, you replaced me? She didn't replace anyone. I simply stepped up when you stepped out. You have no right to raise my son. How dare you try to replace me in his life? He's not your son. He's Josie's son and my son. You don't get to be absent for 10 years of his life and suddenly try to claim your role as his father. Stay out of this, buddy. Did you help create Jake? That's what I thought. This is a conversation between me and Josie. Josie, please. I want to make things right. I want to be a part of Jake's life. I swear I'll do everything I can to make up for my mistake. You had your chance, Mike. You threw us away. Jake doesn't need you now. In fact, he never needed you to begin with. He has a good, loving family now, and I will not let you ruin things for him. Daddy, this strange man is scaring me. Oh, come on, please. I've changed. Let me be a part of his life. This isn't the time or place, Mike. You're scaring Jake. We're leaving. Mom, I want to go home. Jake, please. Don't you want to get to know your real father? Mom, make him go away. It's okay, sweetie. We're leaving now. Stay away from them, Mike. If you try anything to hurt them again, I will make your life miserable. Denzel grabbed both Jake's and my hands and led us out of the mall. I was shaken up and I could barely process what was going on. Our city was big enough for me to have not run into him, which is why I didn't for 10 years. What were the odds that he happened to be there the same day that I was there with Jake? If there was one thing I was sure of, it was that I never wanted Jake to meet Mike. I did my best to protect him, and I still failed. Jake was a crying mess because he could not believe that Denzel wasn't his dad. He hated Mike and made me promise him over and over again that I wouldn't let him be near Mike again. I promised him that I wouldn't. In the next few weeks, I felt very on edge. I kept wondering if I'd run into Mike again. But thankfully, I didn't. Unfortunately, there was something worse coming, and I should have been prepared for that. About a month after we met Mike at the mall, I received a letter in my mail. I had been summoned to court because Mike wanted to get custody of Jake. I felt my heart drop and dread fill my entire body. I must have looked really shocked because when Denzel walked into the room to see me holding those papers, he looked really concerned. What's wrong? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? I got served with these papers. What's this? Apparently, Mike has filed for custody rights of Jake. What? He went 10 years without any contact whatsoever with us, but now that he saw that Jake looked just like him, he wants to be a part of his life. Okay, before I lay down a game plan for you, how do you feel about this? I mean, what else do I feel other than dread and anxiety? I do not want that man near my child at all. He does not get to be around Jake after trying to get me to abort him. I know, and I will make sure that doesn't happen. What do you mean? Right before we left the mall that time we saw him, I told him not to mess with you guys. Since he still went ahead and did this, I'm going to make his life miserable. How will you do that? My dad has a ton of connections, and that means that he's affiliated with a lot of great lawyers. I'll get you the strongest legal team to make sure that you have sole custody of Jake. There's no way I'm going to let that man near my family. That's really sweet of you, darling, but won't that be expensive? Knowing that you and Jake are safe and happy is priceless. So this small amount of money that will secure that future for you two doesn't matter. You're amazing. Did you know that? What did I do to deserve someone like you? You and Jake are incredible. You've been through so much and you still have it in you to smile every single day. That's something I would not be able to do if I was in your shoes. If anything, I'm the one that's lucky to have found you. Oh, shut up. Anyway, you have nothing to worry about. I'll make sure that nothing will come between our family, especially not that sleazebag Mike. You just need to find any and all evidence that you can of Mike's neglect, and if you can, his emotional abuse. Oh, I have stacks and stacks of that. I kind of had a feeling that this could happen, so I tried to maintain as many records as possible of Mike's absence and neglect of Jake. Then this will be over before you know it. That's a huge relief. Now, with that out of the way, for the time being, let's discuss what you want to have for dinner. Words cannot describe how lucky I was to have Denzel by my side. He instantly eased all my worries and anxieties and stood by my side just like he'd promised. The very next day, he contacted his lawyer friends and they helped me build my case. We were summoned to court where our lawyers meticulously provided proof of Mike's abandonment and neglect. Mike's lawyer kept trying to refute the proof, but with the huge amount of proof against him, Mike had nothing else to say. He tried to be emotional about his abandonment, but the judge wasn't having any of it. The trial continued for a long time and I was beginning to get agitated. I couldn't understand why Mike was suddenly so interested in being Jake's father. Aside from that, I also knew that Mike losing the custody battle would not be enough to satisfy my need to teach him a lesson. So I got his family and friends involved. I created 2 separate groups, one for his family and the other for his friends. I knew that he must have been telling everyone lies, so I told them all the truth and even provided them with the same evidence I had shown in court. I wanted to ruin his life. Shortly after I did that, the judge ruled against Mike getting custody of Jake and even ordered him to pay child support, not only from then on, but also for the last few years that he didn't. Mike looked like a defeated man, while Denzel and I walked out feeling victorious. A few days after the verdict, I began getting phone calls from an unknown number. I had a feeling it was Mike, so I didn't pick up. Eventually, I got annoyed with how frequently he kept calling me, so I picked up. Hello? What is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what you've done? What do you want, Mike? Don't play dumb right now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I have no idea. Enlighten me. You had no right to fight against me having custody of Jake, and then you had the audacity to go around spewing lies about me abandoning him, and you to my family and friends. How dare you? You abandoned us before Jake was even born. You had no right to try and claim custody now, and I did not spew lies about you abandoning us. That is literally what you did. You kicked me out of your house because you believed something and refused to even hear me out. That's not fair. I had my reasons for kicking you out. Reasons? You accused me of cheating on you and demanded I abort our child, and then you kicked us out when I refused. That's not a good reason at all. That's not even a reason. You never even tried to contact me after that. You took one look at Jake, saw that he looked like you, and now you want to come back. Do you honestly think that's a normal thing to do? It's my life, Josie. I make my own decisions. I still stand by my decision to kick you out. I believed I was right then, and I still do. And now you have to face the consequences of those decisions. Remember when Denzel warned you not to mess with us? You should have listened. Denzel. Who cares about Denzel? I'll deal with him later. Right now, I want to talk about you exposing me to my family and friends. You need to tell them all that you were lying. I've lost everyone in my life because you couldn't hold your stupid tongue. You mean holding you accountable for your actions? You should be thanking me for showing everyone who you really are. Besides, isn't your mom always going to be on your side? Why isn't she speaking up for you? I remember her always butting her head into the conversations where she didn't belong. Stop being a jerk. My mother is doing her best to control the damage you've done, but even she's been shunned by our family. I've lost all of my friends because they think I was disgusting for what I did and for telling them lies about you. I literally work for one of my friends and I might lose my job. You've ruined my life. You had no right to involve them all in business that isn't theirs. You made it their business when you tried to fight for custody of Jake. You were warned about not messing with us, and since you did, everyone needs to see what a horrible person you are. You think you're so righteous, Josie, but I know that you still cheated on me. Just because Jake is my kid, it doesn't make you any better. Stop trying to make me look like a bad person when you're just as bad, if not worse, than me. I did nothing wrong. I never once cheated on you, and just because you keep telling yourself that I did doesn't make it the truth. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have better things to do than argue with you. You can't just hang up on me. Watch me. I couldn't help but feel satisfied that I managed to ruin Mike's life, even if it was just a little bit. I'd gotten a lot of calls and texts from his friends and family apologizing for not contacting me earlier. He'd been going around telling everyone that I cheated on him. And when he found out, I tried to manipulate him into raising a baby that wasn't his. His friends and family were not happy to hear about what he'd actually done, and his audacity to turn around and try to claim custody of Jake when he'd been absent for years. A lot of them stopped keeping contact with him. The friend he worked for decided that he no longer wanted to work with someone so vile. Aside from Mike being a horrible person, the friend also realized that Mike was not someone who could be trusted, and that was not a good characteristic for an employee. As soon as Mike got fired, I got a lot of texts from him blaming me for ruining his life. Not only did I get texts and calls from Mike, but I also got a lot of calls and texts from Laverne. She was very unhappy that I dragged her into everything. Her family, who had been supporting her financially for years, wanted nothing to do with her. She had to rely on Mike, but he too had lost his job. Both of them were going to suffer a lot, and that made me happy. I ignored their texts and calls, but I didn't block them because they kept updating me about what had been happening with their lives, and I was too curious about it to block them. Eventually, though, they stopped updating me and they were only insulting me, so I blocked them everywhere. A few months ago, I happened to hear from one of Mike's cousins that him and Laverne was struggling to get by. Mike hadn't found a good job yet, but was too stubborn to pick up any job because he wanted it to be in his field. They're running on food banks, and they may get evicted from Mike's apartment anytime soon. I thought I'd feel a little guilty when I heard it, but I really didn't. I just felt satisfied that Mike and Laverne's bad deeds finally caught up to them in the worst way possible. As for Denzel, Jake and I, we're doing great. It took a while for Jake to come to terms with Denzel not being his real dad, but now that he understands it, he's beyond happy that he got lucky with the world's greatest daddy. Denzel and I are also doing great. I've never been happier, and I'm so glad that he had been there with me through the whole thing, because I knew that there was no way I could have gone through the whole thing without breaking down at least 20 times. Things have gone back to the way they've been for the last 10 years. The only difference is that I finally got closure from Mike, and I can now fully move on from the past. Thank you so much for listening.